Well, good morning, everyone. Welcome to our Through the Bible in a Year video for the week. This morning, I'm going to reference the idea that we're starting Leviticus. The last few weeks, I've been picking up on specific passages, but this morning, we are through Leviticus chapter 10, so I figure I'll just kind of talk about some of the issues that surround Leviticus. For those of you who noticed and paid attention, the first 4 chapters, the first day's reading, was all of these minute details, these rules and laws about how how to sacrifice, how to worship God appropriately. That's one of the things that we, I think, misread very often as we are trying to read the Bible. There we go. Okay. When we're reading the Bible, we sometimes don't think about what it is. If you're watching the Through the Bible Through the Bible book by book series of videos that I've been putting out, you'll notice that I started with that it's meditation literature. It's devotional literature. We miss that very frequently. Often we want to read this, especially like Leviticus and Numbers, we want to read these commands as if they are, how do I want to say this? We want to read these commands as if they're modern laws. We read our modern legal code, and it is very clear, right and wrong. Do this, do not do that. But this is not exactly how we read these laws in the Bible. They're not meant to necessarily be explicit commands, and we'll hit a point in Numbers. I might remember to talk about it in Numbers, where we saw it in Exodus too, where if an ox gores somebody and that person dies, you are to stone the ox. Or if the ox gores somebody, you stone the ox. But if the ox has a pattern of goring, if they know it's a gorer, now wait a second. You see the problem. If he's gored once and you didn't stone him, why? The Bible doesn't give you, well, if he stones once, this is the punishment. If he gores once, this is the punishment. If he gores twice, this is the punishment. It never does that. That's kind of a rambling a little bit, but what it boils down to is when we look at, say, the passages where we're talking about sacrifice, we shouldn't look at it as if it's minute detail, that step-by-step process that you have to do or else it's not right. What it was more closely related to is God trying to give kind of the sweeping nature of worship in detail, not simply so people do it right. I don't think God really cared about that. The prophet says that God cares more about the heart than about the sacrifice. I think rather what these sacrifices, the reason that there's detail and minutia in there, is so that the people, as they are coming to worship, will have to think about the step-by-step fact of, what am I doing? What am I doing? What is going on in this ritual that I'm performing? In other words, having all of these steps is not because they're necessary to appease God. Rather, having all of the steps is necessary so that people actually think about what they're doing and how they are going through the business of the sacrifice. It's like when when we read or do some other activities when we're first learning them, we break down the parts so we can really focus in on what we're doing. I can remember when I was learning Greek, my Greek professor would say again and again, parse. That means break down the word into its component parts. Look at each one. Study each one. Be intentional about each one. Why? So that you memorize what's going on and you thoroughly understand what you're about to do. That's a trivial illustration, but it does work. God wants Israel to be very, very intentional about coming to worship. It is not simply good enough to come to worship with half a mind. It is not simply good enough to come to worship distracted. We are to come to worship ready to work through bit by bit and meditate on the fact that God is present. I know we can be very, very bad about that. I know I can. You get into worship and you get into distractions, mental distractions. I know for me especially, as I'm sitting there trying to think about all of the things that are going on around me and all the things that I want to control and the little details, very frequently I can get into a place where my mind is just rattling off words. You know, if I'm not leading the Apostles' Creed especially, and somebody starts in, I can say it without really thinking about it. The first 4 chapters, especially of Leviticus, are a call for us to avoid the distractions of life. It's a call for us to be very intentional about worship. It's not about doing little things exactly the right way to please God. It's about doing the little things the right way so that we can connect to God. That's what we're all about this morning. I would encourage you that as you're reading the book of Leviticus, don't read it as if it's law code. Don't read it as if you'd find it at the state courthouse. Read it as meditation literature. Ask yourself, what do you think the people would have been thinking on their 3rd, 4th, or 5th reading of this? Because it's not meant to be read over, memorized, and put away. It's meant to be read again and again, deep in the heart, so that a person and a community can connect to God. I hope you're having a wonderful day. Have a blessed week.